The mist rolled across Loch Ness, cloaking the water in an eerie shroud. The narrator explained that for centuries, whispers of a monster had unsettled the Scottish Highlands. Ethan Carter said, "Legends often carry pieces of truth." His voice trembled with anticipation as he gazed at the endless black water. The shoreline was empty, yet the silence felt heavy, as if unseen eyes watched from beneath the surface. The local villagers avoided these banks after dark, leaving Ethan alone with his obsession. He had studied myths from ancient scrolls and dusty archives, but now the reality was before him. Claire Mitchell, a skeptical historian, warned him, "This lake holds secrets better left untouched." Her tone carried both caution and disbelief. Ethan ignored the chill in his spine and tightened his grip on the lantern. He was determined to uncover what others dismissed as fantasy. The night deepened, the wind carried whispers, and the loch seemed to breathe with secrets waiting to rise. The narrator described how the Highlands had always been a land of myths, where stories traveled faster than truth. Ethan Carter said, "Every legend begins somewhere." His voice betrayed both conviction and desperation. He walked along the shoreline, the damp soil sinking beneath his boots. Claire Mitchell followed reluctantly, muttering, "Some myths are born from fear, not fact." The lantern flickered, revealing driftwood tangled like skeletal remains. The loch stretched endlessly, its surface so still it mirrored the stars above. A faint sound echoed, rippling through the stillness, though no wind stirred. Ethan froze, gripping his notebook as if answers could shield him. His obsession weighed heavier than the mist. Claire sighed, her voice breaking the silence. "You chase shadows, Ethan." Yet her eyes betrayed curiosity, betraying her skepticism. The narrator concluded that though truth and myth blurred, Ethan's resolve only sharpened in the darkness. The loch whispered in waves too faint to be natural. Ethan Carter paused, staring into the water as if it might speak. He whispered, "This place breathes with secrets." Claire Mitchell folded her arms, saying, "Or it echoes your obsession." The narrator explained that villagers had long claimed strange noises carried across the loch at night, but no one dared investigate. Ethan scribbled furiously in his notebook, sketches of serpents spilling across the pages. Claire leaned closer, her frown softening as unease replaced doubt. The water rippled, though no boat moved. Ethan muttered, "Do you hear it? It calls to us." Claire stiffened, glancing back at the village lights, faint in the distance. The silence grew heavier, pressing on them like a presence. The narrator warned that every step closer to the truth carried a cost unseen, a debt yet to be paid. As midnight deepened, Ethan Carter lit another lantern, its glow struggling against the swallowing mist. He said, "The answers are buried here waiting." Claire Mitchell shook her head, saying, "Or nightmares waiting to be born." The narrator explained that ancient scrolls spoke of shadowy guardians of the loch, warnings that seekers rarely returned. Ethan's hand trembled as he traced the edge of a rock, carved with faint markings. Claire stepped back, her instincts urging caution, but her gaze lingered on the carvings. "This isn't myth," Ethan whispered. His conviction sounded like a vow. The wind carried a low hum, almost like a growl. The water shifted, waves lapping unnaturally against the shore. Claire gasped, gripping her coat tighter, her eyes darting across the water. The narrator reminded that truth does not hide. It resists testing those who dare to unearth it. The night seemed endless, pressing down with invisible weight. Ethan Carter leaned closer to the loch, his lantern trembling. He murmured, "Every myth hides a survivor." Claire Mitchell stepped beside him, whispering, "Or hides a warning." The narrator explained that Ethan's obsession was not born in these highlands, but carried from childhood tales that haunted him. Now, face to face with the waters, he could not turn back. Ripples formed again, faint but deliberate, as though something immense stirred beneath. Ethan's pulse raced, his notes fluttering in the cold wind. Claire whispered, "What if we're not meant to know?" Her voice trembled despite her firm posture. The narrator concluded that the first night by the loch etched a promise into their lives. Whatever dwelled in the depths had noticed them, and silence would no longer protect them. The dawn broke over Loch Ness, painting the mist in pale gold. Ethan Carter sat at a wooden desk inside the local archives, papers strewn before him. He muttered, "These testimonies are fragments, but they point to something deeper." The narrator explained that the archives carried whispers of a century-old investigation, where photographs of strange shapes were hidden away by fearful officials. Claire Mitchell stood behind him, skeptical yet drawn closer, saying, "Old stories don't equal proof." Her tone carried doubt, but her eyes betrayed curiosity as she leaned over his shoulder. The air smelled of old paper, dust and ink, every record thick with forgotten dread. Ethan's fingers traced faded words that spoke of shadows rising from the loch. "This is no myth," he whispered, his voice steady despite trembling hands. The narrator concluded that though light filled the room, the weight of secrecy made it darker than night. The narrator described how Claire Mitchell resisted at first, but the lure of mystery chipped at her reason. Ethan Carter unfolded a blurred photograph, its edges frayed. He said, "Look at this. Something immense, serpentine." Claire squinted at the faded image, replying, "Could be a log or a trick of light." Her words carried little conviction. The lantern on the table flickered, casting long shadows across the walls. Ethan leaned forward, whispering, "They buried this because it was too convincing." The dust in the air seemed to shiver under his intensity. Claire sighed, brushing her hand through her hair, muttering, "You won't stop, will you?" The narrator explained that while she wished to dismiss him, her curiosity tied her fate to his. Outside, the faint sound of waves echoed, as if the loch itself pressed its presence into the room. The archives revealed more than forgotten stories. Among brittle records, Ethan Carter uncovered a name repeated through testimonies: Margaret Doyle, a villager who vanished decades ago. He whispered, "This disappearance connects everything." Claire Mitchell stiffened, saying, "Tragedies don't make monsters real." The narrator explained that Margaret's story carried sorrow through generations, her family fractured by unanswered questions. Ethan pressed the worn record against the light, revealing stains that looked almost like tears. "Her loss was the catalyst," he muttered, eyes heavy with empathy. Claire folded her arms, but the silence betrayed her unease. The room seemed colder, as if the air recoiled from the memory of Margaret. The narrator concluded that the loch held not just myths of beasts, but wounds of those who vanished within its shadow. The narrator revealed that even in quiet archives, unseen hands worked to obscure truth. Ethan Carter felt a chill as he noticed missing pages ripped from a journal. "Someone doesn't want this known," he said, voice hard. Claire Mitchell frowned, answering, "Or maybe it was never there." Yet her glance betrayed doubt. The papers bore marks of deliberate removal, their torn edges fresh compared to the brittle yellowed sheets. Ethan clenched his jaw, whispering, "This isn't decay, it's sabotage." The narrator explained that though silence surrounded them, the weight of someone else's presence loomed, as if the keeper of secrets watched from shadows. Claire shifted uncomfortably, her unease sharpening the air. Outside, bells chimed faintly, drowned by the heavy hush of the loch pressing at the walls. Night returned, the loch cloaked in mist thicker than before. Ethan Carter walked the shoreline, lantern light trembling. "Every clue leads back here," he muttered. The narrator explained that secrecy was not confined to books, for the water itself seemed to guard truths beneath. Claire Mitchell followed reluctantly, her coat pulled tight against the chill, whispering, "This lake feeds fear more than fact." Her words faded against the sound of water lapping with unnatural rhythm. Ethan knelt, his hand brushing wet stones slick with algae. The ripples spread slowly, though no wind stirred. Claire's eyes darted nervously, her voice breaking. Ethan, it feels alive." The narrator concluded that the loch responded not as water should, but as a living thing, as if Margaret Doyle's tragedy still lingered in its depth. The narrator revealed that the loch gave no answers, only riddles. Ethan Carter walked along the banks at dusk, holding the notebook filled with sketches. His voice carried low, "Every path leads me back here." Claire Mitchell followed, reluctant yet tethered by curiosity, muttering, "Obsession blinds more than darkness." Suddenly, a figure stepped from the fog, a stranger cloaked in shadow, eyes hidden under a wide-brimmed hat. His voice was cryptic. "Seek beneath the ruins where water meets stone." Ethan froze, demanding, "Who are you?" But the man vanished as quickly as he appeared, footsteps fading like echoes swallowed by mist. The narrator explained that this mysterious outsider left no trace, but stirred the air with dread. Claire whispered, "That wasn't chance." Ethan's hand trembled, yet determination carved his gaze. The loch held many enemies, but now it also spoke through strangers whose loyalties remained veiled. The narrator described how Ethan Carter returned to the village tavern seeking clarity, but found only skepticism. Locals avoided his gaze, whispering about madness. Ethan said, "Fear keeps you silent." His words met only silence. Claire Mitchell stood near the hearth, remarking, "They believe you bring danger." A man slammed his mug down, muttering, "The loch punishes those who pry." The tension grew heavy, flames casting sharp shadows against wooden walls. Ethan tightened his grip on the notebook, eyes burning with defiance. The narrator explained that though ridicule cut deep, silence cut deeper, binding villagers in chains of fear. Claire's expression softened, watching Ethan's resolve harden. His obsession now carried him further from allies and closer to peril. The tavern's noise dimmed as if the walls themselves recoiled from his pursuit. The narrator explained that danger often wore friendly faces. Ethan Carter welcomed a man who claimed to share his quest, introducing himself as Robert Hale. His voice smooth, Robert said, "I seek answers too." Ethan, relieved, replied, "Then we walk the same path." Claire Mitchell frowned, whispering, "Trust does not come so easily." Robert smiled warmly, but his eyes lingered too long on Ethan's notes. The narrator revealed that this hidden enemy blended sincerity with deceit, weaving words like threads of comfort. Ethan felt kinship, unaware of the snare tightening. Robert spoke softly, "Together, we may uncover what others fear." Claire's arms crossed tighter, suspicion etched across her face. The loch's shadows had given Ethan a false ally, one whose betrayal would wound deeper than doubt. The narrator revealed that those who guarded secrets rarely used silence alone. Ethan Carter discovered a newspaper pinned against the tavern's notice board. The headline dismissed sightings as hoaxes, claiming photographs were fabricated. Ethan whispered angrily, "They're rewriting truth." Claire Mitchell said, "It's easier to smother belief than face it." The villagers nodded in quiet agreement, reinforcing the lie. Behind this manipulation lurked the keeper of secrets, shaping stories, bending public will. Ethan clenched the paper, his jaw rigid. The narrator explained that while evidence could vanish, doubt spread faster, infecting minds, until truth drowned. Claire touched Ethan's arm lightly, murmuring, "You can't fight them all." Yet his silence was heavier than words, for obsession anchored him deeper against a tide of deception. The narrator described how desperation drove Ethan Carter deeper. At night, he returned to the loch, kneeling near the edge where water lapped with strange rhythm. His whisper broke the silence, "Show me the truth." Claire Mitchell stood behind him, arms folded, muttering, "This search will consume you." The loch responded with ripples, though no wind stirred. Ethan leaned closer, eyes wide, as shadows beneath the water shifted. For a moment, something vast broke the surface, only to sink back before shape could form. His breath caught, heart pounding. Claire gasped, stepping backward. The narrator explained that though fleeting, the sight was undeniable, fueling Ethan's obsession like fire fed by storm. In the quiet after, the loch returned to stillness, leaving only the echo of what might have been. The narrator explained that Ethan Carter spent sleepless hours searching through notes, tracing ancient legends to Celtic myths. He whispered, "The monster isn't just folklore. It's tied to rituals older than memory." Claire Mitchell leaned close, murmuring, "Legends and warnings are not the same." The candlelight flickered against worn parchment, covered in symbols of serpents and guardians. Ethan's eyes burned with obsession as he said, "This connects to stones buried near the loch." His hand trembled as he circled words etched in forgotten tongues. The narrator revealed that myths were threads woven into history, and those who pulled at them risked unraveling truths too vast to contain. Claire frowned, her doubt softening into unease, whispering, "If this is true, what are we facing?" Ethan answered only with silence, his gaze fixed on the ink that seemed to breathe with life. The narrator described how Claire Mitchell's skepticism cracked when the loch itself began to stir. Mist clung to her coat as she stood by the shoreline, eyes wide at the unnatural ripples moving against the current. She muttered, "It moves with purpose." Ethan Carter stepped beside her, saying, "Now you believe." His voice carried triumph, though fear lingered. The loch shifted again, as if something beneath exhaled. Claire pressed her hand to her chest, trembling. "I wanted myth, not this," she whispered. The lantern light flickered wildly, shadows stretching across the mist. Ethan leaned forward, murmuring, "We are standing on the edge of revelation." The narrator explained that Claire's disbelief fractured into awe, her resolve shifting, binding her fate to Ethan's relentless pursuit. The narrator revealed that the story of Margaret Doyle returned, no longer just a record, but a haunting presence. Ethan Carter read aloud from a villager's journal. She vanished after seeing shapes rise from the water. His tone carried both sorrow and certainty. Claire Mitchell listened, her face pale, whispering, "This isn't just history, it's her curse." The faint echo of a child's laugh carried across the water, freezing them both. Ethan's voice dropped. "Her tragedy anchors the myth." The narrator explained that Margaret's loss was not isolated but woven into the mystery of the loch. Claire shivered, saying, "If her fate ties to this place, we are trespassing on grief." The silence that followed pressed heavier than stone, as if the loch remembered every soul it swallowed. The narrator explained that betrayal cuts deepest when it wears a familiar face. Ethan Carter showed Robert Hale his findings, trusting him with pages no one else had seen. Robert smiled, saying smoothly, "This is remarkable, Ethan." His voice held warmth, but his eyes flickered with calculation. Claire Mitchell's suspicion sharpened, whispering, "Why show him this?" Ethan replied firmly, "We need allies." Yet Robert's grip on the papers lingered too long. The narrator revealed that trust was a blade, and Ethan had handed his to the wrong hands. Claire muttered, "Something isn't right." But Ethan's conviction silenced her. Outside, the loch stirred, as if sensing deception had found its way into their circle. Robert folded the notes with calm precision, his smile too perfect to believe. The narrator revealed that those who guarded secrets grew desperate when truth drew close. That night, Ethan Carter found his notes missing, pages torn away. His voice shook. "Robert betrayed me." Claire Mitchell placed a hand on his arm, whispering, "I warned you." Ethan's chest tightened as anger flared, his breath sharp in the cold night air. The loch echoed with waves that struck against the shore harder than before. The narrator explained that betrayal fractured Ethan's fragile trust, leaving him exposed. Claire said softly, "We are not safe." Ethan clenched his fists, muttering, "I'll drag the truth out, no matter who tries to bury it." The lantern light sputtered, nearly extinguished, yet his resolve burned brighter than the flame. The narrator revealed that Ethan Carter's resolve wavered as the weight of obsession crushed him. He sat by the loch, eyes hollow, muttering, "I've given everything, yet the truth eludes me." His hands trembled over torn notes, symbols broken like his spirit. Claire Mitchell knelt beside him, her tone urgent, "You'll lose yourself chasing this shadow." Ethan's voice cracked, "If I stop, it all dies with me." The mist pressed close, swallowing the stars above, and the water mirrored his despair. The narrator explained that obsession steals more than peace. It devours reason and bends will until nothing remains but hunger. Claire's eyes softened, her whisper nearly breaking, "I can't watch you fall." Yet Ethan's silence revealed his torment, his gaze fixed on the dark waves that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. The narrator described how Claire Mitchell begged Ethan Carter to pause, her voice trembling with reason. "There are truths not meant for us," she said, clutching his arm. Ethan shook his head, whispering, "I've come too far to turn away." The loch churned faintly, waves brushing the stones as if in answer. Claire pulled her coat tighter, whispering, "This will destroy you." Ethan's eyes burned with defiance. "Then let it," he said sharply. The lantern swayed, shadows stretching like claws across the shoreline. The narrator explained that obsession is not easily broken. It clings like the mist, consuming those who dare embrace it. Claire's silence carried both fear and loyalty, as though tethered unwillingly to his path. The night grew colder, and the loch echoed like a warning left unanswered. The narrator revealed that Robert Hale's web of deceit began to fray. He hovered near Ethan Carter, his charm slipping into unease. Robert said smoothly, "You must trust me still." Ethan's jaw tightened, his voice low, "You hid more than you revealed." Claire Mitchell crossed her arms, her voice sharp, "You led us astray." Robert's eyes darted, his calm veneer cracking under suspicion. The tavern's firelight flickered, reflecting in his nervous gaze. Ethan stepped closer, his whisper like steel, "Truth bends, but it does not vanish." The narrator explained that deception falters when eyes see past its veil. Robert forced a smile, but his grip on the table betrayed desperation. Claire's suspicion now hardened into certainty. This ally was nothing more than a deceiver unraveling under the weight of his own lies. The narrator described how the loch revealed its curse through visions. Ethan Carter stood at the shore, his eyes wide as the mist parted to reveal a spectral figure, Margaret Doyle's pale outline fading in and out of sight. His whisper broke, "The victim calls to us." Claire Mitchell gasped, clutching her coat, saying, "It's her, the missing one." The figure drifted across the water, sorrow etched in every movement before dissolving into ripples. Ethan's voice trembled, "She is the key, her tragedy binds this place." The narrator explained that grief lingers longer than life, shaping legends from pain. Claire's tears glistened, her whisper breaking, "We disturb her rest." The vision vanished, leaving silence heavier than words, the loch once more still yet burdened with secrets too vast to bury. The narrator revealed that the informant returned one last time, stepping from shadows at the edge of the village. His eyes glimmered under the brim of his hat as he said, "Follow the stones beneath the chapel ruins." Ethan Carter demanded, "Why help me?" The man's smile was cryptic, because some truths are meant to surface. Claire Mitchell stepped forward, her voice shaking, "And some should stay buried." The informant tipped his hat before fading into the mist, leaving only echoes of his warning. Ethan clenched his fists, whispering, "The ruins hold the final path." The narrator explained that cryptic guidance both opened doors and sowed dread, for each clue carried weight heavier than the last. The night seemed alive, the loch watching, its silence promising revelations at a price. The narrator revealed that Ethan Carter confronted the keeper of secrets at the edge of the chapel ruins. "I." His voice was firm, "You silenced the truth for too long." The keeper, cloaked in authority, replied coldly, "The world does not deserve what sleeps beneath." Claire Mitchell stood tense, whispering, "He hides more than fear." The stones around them loomed, carved with ancient symbols glowing faintly in the mist. Ethan's anger boiled, his fists clenched. "Truth cannot be buried forever," he growled. The narrator explained that confrontation was inevitable when obsession collided with power. The keeper's eyes narrowed, his voice echoing like judgment, "Curiosity is a curse." Claire's gaze shifted between them, fear sparking with each word. The air trembled with the weight of secrets ready to burst free. The narrator described how betrayal struck deeper than any wound. Robert Hale's mask slipped, his voice sharp, "You were never meant to see the truth." Ethan Carter staggered, whispering, "You used me." Claire Mitchell's eyes filled with fury, shouting, "You led us into this trap." Robert smiled coldly, "The loch demands silence." Ethan's heart clenched, his trust shattered. The narrator explained that betrayal corrodes from within, cutting ties that once anchored hope. Ethan stepped forward, rage seething, "I will not be your pawn." Robert's calm cracked, his face twisting with desperation. Claire reached for Ethan's arm, her whisper urgent, "He wants to break you." The loch stirred violently behind them, as if echoing the chaos of broken loyalty. The narrator revealed that Claire Mitchell risked everything to shield Ethan Carter from the Keeper's wrath. She stepped forward, voice strong. "If he falls, you'll silence me too." Ethan shouted, "Claire, no!" But she held her ground, defiance etched across her face. The Keeper sneered, "Your courage will cost you." The loch's waters thrashed in the distance, its roar echoing like thunder. Claire whispered firmly, "Some truths deserve defenders." The narrator explained that loyalty often grows fiercest in shadows where doubt thrives. Ethan's heart pounded, torn between gratitude and fear. He called out, "We face this together." Claire's silence was answer enough, her stance unyielding as the mist swirled around her like armor. The narrator described how chaos erupted as they fled toward the loch. Ethan Carter shouted, "We cannot stop now." His lantern swayed as they sprinted, shadows twisting against the trees. Claire Mitchell's breath came in sharp gasps, muttering, "It follows us." Behind them, Robert Hale's footsteps pounded, his voice echoing, "You cannot escape truth's prison." The ground grew slick with mist, stones treacherous beneath their feet. The loch roared louder, waves thrashing against its banks. The narrator explained that the chase was not only against enemies, but against the weight of destiny itself. Ethan's determination burned brighter than fear, his eyes fixed on the dark water that promised either revelation or ruin. The narrator revealed that the final confrontation came at the water's edge. Ethan Carter stood at the loch, chest heaving, his voice fierce, "Show us what you hide." The loch erupted, waves rising like walls. Claire Mitchell clutched his arm, whispering, "This is madness." Robert Hale arrived, face twisted in fury, shouting, "You'll drown in secrets." The Keeper's voice carried through the roar, "Truth destroys those who demand it." Ethan raised his lantern high, its flame nearly extinguished, yet his gaze unbroken. The narrator explained that every choice exacts a cost, and theirs demanded courage beyond reason. The water surged forward, swallowing stones as if to drag them in. Silence followed for a breath, and then the abyss stirred beneath them. The narrator revealed that silence followed the storm as Ethan Carter stood at the trembling shore, his voice steady but weary. "The truth waits beneath." Claire Mitchell whispered, "Then we've gone too far to return." The waves calmed, yet the air pulsed with unseen presence. Shadows writhed under the water, their movements deliberate, as if acknowledging Ethan's defiance. The narrator explained that truth is not given, it is earned, demanded through sacrifice. Ethan's lantern flickered its last breath, casting only fragments of light on their faces. Claire's voice cracked, "If we see it, we'll never be the same." Ethan answered with silence, his gaze locked on the abyss. The narrator explained that Margaret Doyle's presence returned, more vivid than before. Her figure drifted above the loch, pale and sorrowful, her voice faint like wind, "Do not free what should remain bound." Ethan Carter whispered, "You suffered for their silence." Claire Mitchell clasped her hands, eyes glistening with tears, whispering, "Her warning is final." The apparition wavered, her sorrow binding them in stillness. Ethan stepped forward, saying, "Your fate will not be forgotten." The narrator revealed that the victim's grief shaped the boundary between myth and reality, a wound echoing through generations. Margaret faded into mist, leaving ripples that stretched endlessly across the water. The narrator revealed that truth pierced deepest when betrayal was closest. Robert Hale stumbled toward them, eyes wild, shouting, "It was never meant for you." His desperation betrayed guilt, his loyalty long broken. Ethan Carter growled, "You sold lies for silence." Claire Mitchell hissed, "You betrayed more than trust." Robert's voice cracked, "The monster is real, but it belongs to us." The narrator explained that betrayal is often born of fear, twisting bonds into chains of ruin. Ethan stepped closer, his voice sharp, "Your lies drown with the loch." Robert faltered, consumed by the weight of his deception, as the water thrashed louder. The narrator described how the loch convulsed, its waters splitting to reveal vast shadowy forms twisting beneath. Claire Mitchell gasped, whispering, "It breathes!" Ethan Carter shouted at last, "The myth reveals itself." The roar of water drowned their words, yet awe and terror bound them in silence. The Keeper of Secrets' voice echoed from the ruins, "You unleashed what we swore to bind." The narrator explained that revelation demands a price, and theirs came in the form of dread too great to contain. Claire trembled, eyes fixed on the monstrous silhouette beneath the waves. Ethan's voice broke, "My life was for this moment." The narrator revealed that silence returned as the waves calmed, leaving only ripples across the loch. Ethan Carter collapsed to his knees, whispering, "The truth devours all." Claire Mitchell knelt beside him, her voice breaking, "We survived, but we'll never escape what we saw." The sun broke the horizon, painting the mist in gold, yet no warmth reached their faces. The narrator explained that the monster's existence was neither proven nor denied, suspended between myth and reality, leaving scars that words could not mend. Ethan gazed across the water, eyes hollow, whispering, "The price of truth is everything." Claire's silence was answer enough, her trembling hand clutching his.